Hey, good morning. I'm Patricia Murphy. It's Thursday. This is Seattle Now. Some of the biggest names in AI are setting up shop in Bellevue. It's a blow for Seattle, where leaders have worked to attract new tech innovators to fill up all those office vacancies. Puget Sound Business Journal tech reporter Nick Pasion will tell us what's so attractive about Bellevue. But first, let's get you caught up. The Washington State Senate has already approved a measure to lower the blood alcohol limit from 0.08 to 0.05. It now heads over to the House. If you want to weigh in, there's a public hearing this morning. Supporters say lowering the DUI threshold will make roads safer, but owners of bars, restaurants, and wineries have voiced concerns that it could drive customers away. Today's hearing begins at 8 a.m. Beginning March 1st, it'll cost you more to use a credit or debit card to ride on Washington State ferries. The agency says the 3% fee will help recoup the fees it has to pay to banks on those transactions. The Seattle Times reports it's part of a broader plan to boost revenue, including fare hikes and a surcharge to ride during the summer. The new credit card fee is expected to generate about $7.4 million for the ferry system. The charge won't apply to people who use Orca cards or cash. And the Seattle Mayor's office knows you're busy, so they've extended the deadline for the renters survey until Friday at midnight. City officials want to know about your living situation and what policies might help make renting more affordable. While cities don't have the power to regulate rents, Mayor Katie Wilson says Seattle does have the power to limit other fees charged by landlords. We're back with more headlines on tonight's episode of Seattle Now. Investment in AI infrastructure is continuing full steam ahead. And one of AI's growing hotspots is just a floating bridge away in Bellevue. Vacancies are scarcer as office space in the city is getting gobbled up. Meanwhile, in Seattle, we're teeming in unused office space. What do these companies see in Bellevue that isn't in Seattle? Well, friendly tax codes for one, but there's a range of other factors. Puget Sound Business Journal tech reporter Nick Pasion has been reporting on the growth. He's here to discuss why Bellevue is the destination for local AI expansion. Thanks for coming in, Nick.
Thanks so much for having me. Happy to be here.
Companies like OpenAI and Musk's xAI are snapping up office space in Bellevue. Those are some pretty big players. Who else is choosing the city?
So we're seeing a lot of not just kind of these AI, LLM companies that you'd normally think of, like OpenAI, xAI, Anthropic, companies like that. But we're also seeing kind of the industry around AI kind of set up shop there. So some of the other companies that we're seeing set up shop there are these companies called neo-cloud companies. They are the ones that are building data centers on mass scales for these AI companies, as well as some of the big tech companies like Amazon and Microsoft. So companies like CoreWeave and KUOW, as well as Lambda, have kind of set up offices in the Bellevue area. And those are all neo-cloud companies building data centers across the U.S. We're also seeing some of the, more enterprise side, like Snowflake and Databricks, which are grabbing a lot of space in the Bellevue area and downtown Bellevue specifically.
What are these companies doing?
What I think these companies are doing is they are looking to grow. They're on paths of growth and they have lots of money and they're trying to figure out how to spend it. One way to spend it is to not only build out data centers, which we're seeing in mass, but is to also hire a lot of really well-paid tech talent. And as everyone listening to this knows, the Puget Sound area is rife with tech talent thanks to Amazon, Microsoft, and a handful of other tech companies that have called this area its home for the past few decades.
Important context. So a lot of these companies are landing in downtown Bellevue. What should we know about why that area is such a draw for tech?
I think something that is happening now is Bellevue is going to be getting the light rail station with the Cross Lake connection opening this spring. And I think that comes in play for a lot of these tech companies. They know, not all their employees may live in Bellevue and not all of them may live in Seattle. So they're kind of trying to find a middle ground here where employees in Seattle are able to get into downtown Bellevue. I think another draw for them to come into Bellevue is it has a really business-friendly environment. And that's something that was purposely done by the city council. They released a economic development plan last week, and part of it included supporting the growth of the emerging industry sectors, including artificial intelligence. part of that plan also included actively recruiting businesses outside of Washington. So there's a really full force lobbying effort from not only the city council, but also commercial real estate developers, brokers, to get these companies to come to Bellevue. And part of the sale that they're pitching is a little bit of, access to veteran work talent. There's a lot of new offices. So think of a new office kind of like a nice new car for a guy going through a midlife crisis. And also a lot of kind of nice space for people to access through transit. And that's something that all these tech companies are considering when opening a Seattle area office.
It sounds like what you're saying here is all the benefits of Seattle without the Seattle.
I think there's a little bit of both. These companies are looking for talent that is more veteran. They're not hiring for entry-level roles that you might see at the level of a Microsoft or an Amazon. They're looking for people who are kind of mid-career, have kind of excelled at these big tech companies that they've been working at, and maybe they'll hop over, maybe get a pay bump. They'll maybe get some more prestige since it's the hot item on the market right now. And they're already living on the east side because they're mid-career, they have families, and they own a house over there.
How are the downtown vacancies from Microsoft factoring in here?
I think Microsoft left behind a lot of square feet in Bellevue in kind of the 2022-2023 range when it pulled out and consolidated its workforce onto its Redmond headquarters. So we saw a lot of empty space in the Bellevue area, and I think there was real concern among people in Bellevue that we would have trouble filling up this space in the years to come. Luckily for them, AI came right after and started scooping up a bunch of space. It's not kind of on purpose, but OpenAI coincidentally grabbed about 300,000 square feet in a building that was formerly occupied by Microsoft. The conventional thinking among real estate people is it's about 150 square feet per person. And so if you kind of do the math there, that leaves space for more than 1,000 employees at that new OpenAI lease. And they're kind of just grabbing up this space while it's available. It's a hot market.
How do we reconcile all the recent tech layoffs with the companies that are hiring on the east side?
Understanding the tech layoffs and the companies opening up office space is kind of a multi-pronged thing. So starting with the tech layoffs, Amazon and Microsoft and some of the other big tech companies are cutting staff right now because their capital expenditures are rising. That essentially means the money that they are spending on data centers, on buying NVIDIA chips, the things that power AI, and all of that costs a lot of money, and they need to free up some cash flow to spend it on that. I think the first place that a lot of these companies go is to headcount. They're seeing, we have a lot of middle management who's making a lot of money. And if we can cut that staff, we can ask people to do more and with less resources or maybe less people around them. And we think that we can then reallocate that money toward data centers and AI and stuff like that. They're then taking that money and signing big deals with kind of these budding AI firms. So when you think about Amazon reportedly are in talks with investing money in OpenAI, Microsoft investing money in OpenAI, these companies striking big cloud deals with some of the neo-cloud companies I mentioned earlier, like CoreWeave and KUOW. So those companies now have a lot of the money that the big tech companies were previously spending on employees and stuff like that. But now they have money and they need to spend that money on building these data centers and kind of getting AI to the point where these big tech companies want to be. So to do that, they're now on a quest for office space and talent. And to kind of connect those dots there, it's not the same skill sets of the people they're cutting at Amazon that are the ones who are going to be like open to hire at these AI companies. A lot of the Amazon cuts that we saw in the last round in October were a lot of HR staff, a lot of recruiting people. And that's not necessarily who these AI companies are looking to hire. They're looking to hire, people who have experience in AI, people who have kind of experience in data centers and the cloud and stuff like that who can kind of help get this effort off the ground and going.
Anybody unhappy with this? It's good for the economy in Bellevue, but, traffic, crowding.
I think that's yet to be seen. A lot of these companies are still kind of moving in. We haven't seen them kind of get to their maximum workforce yet. Bellevue has historically been a place that it's pretty hard to access without train or bus or that like that. So public transit is still new and it's something they're kind of testing out. So we'll see if traffic gets a lot worse in the area. Anecdotally, I can say growing up in the Bellevue area that traffic has gone a lot worse between when I was in high school and kind of growing up and now. So I don't know, maybe that's a byproduct.
Let's talk about longevity for a second, because you said the market is hot right now. These companies have an awful lot of money. They're looking to spend. AI is still rather speculative at this point. Is this a gamble?
I 100% think it's a gamble. I think it's kind of unclear on if we are in an AI bubble or not. It's kind of unclear what the long-term sustainability of these big tech companies are going to be. And, what we've seen with past bubbles is kind of the shutdown of some of these companies that have taken on a lot of the burden. It's not clear to me yet, and I don't think it's clear to anyone yet. And I think if it was clear to you, you'd be getting paid a lot of money on kind of what is the future for a lot of these tech companies, especially in a place like Bellevue, that's kind of a growing city on the east side. I think that's to be seen, and we'll kind of wait and see.
The city of Seattle has sure done a lot to try to attract AI startups.
Totally.
There's a big flashy incubator down on the waterfront. Yeah. How should Seattle city leaders be thinking about these big companies choosing Bellevue?
I think there's kind of a distinction to be made here. I think there's kind of the newer startups, kind of 1 to 3 person gigs that are kind of trying to get off the ground, get their funding, and get started. Maybe how OpenAI was maybe 10 or 12 years ago. But right now, a lot of the companies that we're seeing lease in Bellevue are kind of these more established AI players who have been around for a decade plus, including OpenAI and stuff like that. So I think what the challenge is going to be for Seattle is, do we want to attract these young startups, or do we want to look more for these kind of established AI players to open up office spaces in our city? There's kind of a mix in what Seattle leaders can do, and I know that's something they're trying to figure out right now.
Yeah, for sure. How does our region fit in with the AI landscape more broadly?
There's no question that San Francisco is the hub for artificial intelligence. I think everyone knows that, but I do think that these companies are getting to the point where they're not necessarily growing out of San Francisco, but they're growing to the point where they need more resources outside of San Francisco. And we've seen Seattle kind of serve as a hub for that. We're historically known as kind of a big corporate monolith with, most of the tech establishment here being more of these kind of industry-wide, well-known Fortune 500 companies, not necessarily kind of the startup blitz that you're seeing in San Francisco. I think that if Seattle wants to maybe redefine itself in that way, it's kind of attracting more startups. There's a lot of different angles to do that, and I think there's definitely some contention right now going on in the state legislature about taxes and stuff that might be pushing people away, depending.
Yeah, we've been hearing an awful lot about the millionaires tax.
Oh, yeah.
So that's certainly probably going to factor into at least the dialogue. All right. Looking ahead for the next 6 months, what are you anticipating in terms of continued growth? Will Bellevue keep bulking up?
I think there will be continued growth, but I do think it hits a ceiling at some point. Bellevue is running out of open real estate. Right now, there's only one fully new office building that's totally unleased. It's called the 4106 building. It's kind of by the light rail again. It was one of those buildings that got planned and built kind of in the early 2020s during the tech boom. And, there was some concern about filling it, but now we're seeing, I reported last month that both Uber and this company called Databricks, which is this kind of AI data software management company based in San Francisco, have been in talks to lease pretty much the entire building. And that'll take off a lot of space that's open. So I think right now what we're seeing is kind of this sprint to get the remaining space available in Bellevue, since there's not a lot of office projects underway.
Really interesting. Really appreciate it. Nick Pasion is a tech reporter with Puget Sound Business Journal. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate you listening to Seattle Now, and thank you to our generous donors for your financial support. Want to show us some love? Take a minute to rate and review the show on your favorite podcast app. Today's episode was produced by Jenny Cecil Moore with help from Brooklyn Jamerson Flowers. It was edited by Caroline Chamberlain Gomez. Our production team also includes Vaughn Jones, Andy Hurst, and Paige Browning. Greg Kramer does our theme music. Seattle Now and KUOW Public Radio are members of the NPR network. I'm Patricia Murphy. See you tonight for Evening Headlines.